Hey guys, I'm never really sure how much to talk about topical and current events, especially ones that have a lot of emotions and opinions around them. But I do want to talk about the Umpqua Community College shooting that's happened in Oregon. This is not the first shooting that's happened or school shooting that's even happened in Oregon. We had one last year. We've had an active shooter at the Clackamas Town Center Mall just outside of Portland a few years ago. And these are happening within relatively short amounts of time. They're immensely unpredictable, but there are traits and there are things to be aware of here. Michael Shermer posted 2 days ago on Twitter this tweet: three common motives for mass murder: psychopathy and mental illness, sense of victimization and ideological cause, and desire for fame and glory. These are not hindsight biased opinions. These are not things that he's claiming after the fact and moving backwards. No, these are very common and predictable things. I am surprised to see actually the pushback on these 3 points of identification because I think they're very basic. I don't find them to be all that profound or really all that controversial. Yet there seems to be this tendency that we cannot profile anyone for any reason, and this is a huge mistake. There, so I read the book Columbine by Dave Cullen. It's about 400 pages, and in one of them, he actually puts in the timeline. And if you read through the timeline, so here's a little shot of the timeline. If you read through the timeline between Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, they actually start their journals and they start making pipe bombs. They start going on rants, either online or on their journals or on videotape. They start acquiring guns and going for target practice, and they get into writing about Nazis and describing sadistic rape fantasies in their journal. If you would if you would know this about your neighbor, you'd be scared. You wouldn't want somebody like this living next to you, somebody who has these views and that um, one of the things that the shooter from just I think it was last year at Santa Barbara had these rants against women, and I'm hearing similar things this time about girls are not attracted to him, and et cetera, et cetera. We are not living in puritanical times here. If you can't get laid in 2015, this is part of the profile. If your activities are around fantasies and pornography and violence, and you're torturing animals and you seem to lack empathy, and you're acquiring guns and you're talking about how you have these big grandiose plans to attack and hurt people or animals, these are signs. These, again, are not the kind of people you'd want as your neighbor. If I learned that about my neighbors, I would be immensely suspicious. I would probably go to the lengths of really trying to observe what the hell it is that they are up to if I knew those kinds of things about them. And so that's just a point of encouragement to all of us who know people. If you hear people espousing these kinds of ideas. Here, let me actually read you what Eric Harris had put in his journal about Columbine. If we have figured out the art of time bombs beforehand, we will set hundreds of them around houses, roads, bridges, buildings, and gas stations. It will be like the LA riots, the Oklahoma bombing, World War II, Vietnam, Duke Nukem, and Doom all mixed together. Maybe we will even start a little rebellion or revolution to fuck things up as much as we can. I want to leave a lasting impression on the world. This is right into that fame and glory part. We as spectators now in modern society of the news, events, we have obligations that we're not really acknowledging our part. And Seneca wrote about this in Letters from a Stoic when it comes to the gladiatorial games. He wrote, "In the morning, men are thrown to the lions and bears, but it is the spectators they are thrown to in the lunch hour." What do you think he means by that? The spectators insist that each, on killing his man, shall be thrown against another to be killed in his turn, and the eventual victor is reserved by them for some other form of butchery. The only exit for the contestants is death. So he's making an observation that once you go into that gladiatorial arena and you win, there will be another man who walks through the door. And if you win, there's another man who walks through the door. Your eventual exit from this arena is you dying. And he writes, "Fire and steel keep the slaughter going." And all of this happens while the arena is virtually empty. Now, we don't have the last problem here of the arena being empty. In fact, CNN has a marketing department, marketing and relations department, let's call it, where they have a duty to fill the arena, to fill it to a capacity the likes of which they haven't seen before. And I don't know if such a role had existed in Seneca's time, if maybe there was a pamphleteer for the gladiatorial events, or whether or not they were just at scheduled times and people would come down and watch this bloody display, this bloody inhuman display of butchery. I'm not sure that I or we would even know, but I think it's a fairly safe, erring on the side of caution, a safe maybe presumption to say probably not that likely. I doubt there was a solid marketing campaign effort by those who owned and ran the Coliseum to hype cycle what's happening or control the optics or push an agenda. Yet those are the objectives of the outlets who discuss these things within the public space, within the area of which we are all present as spectators. And so we observe this type of reporting from various news outlets, and this will be hot for a week or 2 weeks, and then we'll move on, and some other issue of the day or inevitable tragedy, or we'll just sort of chase the endless cycle of disasters and suffering. We're really just reporting on things of suffering. Well, this has an impact on people. I mean, you do this day in and day out, constantly, without any kind of off button or slowing down or further discussion. And this is going to have an effect on people. It's going to have an effect on people who commit these kinds of crimes.